3 decades after the discovery of the moon K23, almost the entire surface of Earth is now covered in deadly radiation, forcing all humans to evacuate and leave the planet. Augustine, who works at an observatory in Antarctica, refuses to join the evacuation. He chooses to stay behind to maintain communication with the space expedition teams. A few days later, while checking his computer, Augustine discovers that almost all the space expedition teams have gone silent. The only remaining team is on the spacecraft Ether, with 5 crew members on board, including someone who looks very much like his wife, Jean Sullivan. Jean left Augustine when she was pregnant with their child, feeling that Augustine was too absorbed in his work and neglecting those close to him. Later, while going to the cafeteria, Augustine finds a bowl of cereal left on a table. This makes him wonder because, as far as he knows, there is no one else in the observatory. However, Augustine dismisses it, thinking he might have forgotten leaving it there himself. Meanwhile, on the Ether spacecraft, Sully, who looks very much like Zhang, is in charge of the communication system and is pregnant with the captain, Adewol's child. Additionally, there are 3 other crew members, Maya as the flight engineer, Sanchez as the pilot, and Mitchell as the chief medical officer. The Ether is on its way back to Earth after years of an expedition to the moon K23 to determine if it could be habitable. Unfortunately, they have not been able to convey this good news because all communication networks are down, leaving the Ether unable to contact Earth or other expedition teams. Meanwhile, during his daily routine, Augustine is startled by a fire alarm going off in the kitchen. After putting out the fire, he discovers a young girl hiding under the table. Realizing that the girl had been left behind, Augustine quickly tries to contact the evacuation team. However, despite his efforts, there is no response at all. With no hope of rescue, Augustine decides to take care of the girl. While making dinner, the girl draws an iris flower, leading Augustine to believe her name is Iris. Augustine sets up a separate room for Iris so she can rest comfortably. However, in the middle of the night, Iris leaves her room and sleeps in the corner of Augustine's room. From that point on, Augustine's routine changes as Iris follows him everywhere he goes. One day, while checking the communication antenna, Augustine finds hundreds of dying birds on the snow, realizing that the dangerous radiation has arrived sooner than he expected. Since the observatory's antenna isn't strong enough to contact Ether, Augustine decides to go to a weather station at Lake Hazen that has a stronger antenna and is shielded from radiation by the mountains. Knowing the journey to the weather station is quite far, Augustine prepares the necessary equipment. He sets off with Iris on a jet ski, traveling through uncontaminated areas. At night, they set up a tent to rest. Meanwhile, on the Ether, the crew spends their time playing video games, cards, and using hologram technology to reduce their longing for their families. Suddenly, an emergency alarm sounds, alerting the crew that the ship is off course. They need to plot a new route through uncharted territory, facing unexpected risks. The next morning, Augustine and Iris find the wreckage of a crashed plane. Augustine tells Iris to wait outside while he checks inside the plane, finding a man who is severely injured but still alive. Outside, Iris looks towards the cockpit and sees the dead pilot. She enters the plane, but Augustine sends her away because the injured man asks Augustine to end his suffering. During their journey, Iris points to a place and Augustine steers the jet ski in that direction. They find a bunker where they can rest before continuing their journey. After bringing the equipment from the jet ski, Augustine sees Iris drawing the face of a woman who looks like Zhang.
Bruh.
Augustine shares his memories of Zhang, but stops when Iris asks if he loved her. In the middle of the night, they wake up to find their bunker flooding due to melting ice. Augustine quickly takes Iris outside and tells her to run to safety, while he tries to save the equipment and supplies from the bunker. Although Augustine reaches the jet ski, the ice melts so quickly that the jet ski sinks. He tries to catch it but eventually gives up because the jet ski sinks too fast and the water is very cold, so he returns to land. Now they have to continue their journey to Lake Hazen on foot without enough supplies. During the trip, Augustine gives his last bit of food to Iris, making her look very worried. But Augustine reassures Iris that they will find plenty of food once they reach the weather station. They keep walking through a snowstorm with limited visibility, until Augustine vaguely sees a pack of wolves surrounding them. In panic, Augustine fires his gun in all directions to scare the wolves away. But in the chaos, he realizes that Iris has disappeared. Desperately, Augustine keeps calling for Iris without getting a response. As he begins to lose hope and lies down on the snow, he suddenly sees a figure he initially thought was Zhang. But Augustine soon realizes that the figure is actually Iris and she is still alive. Grateful, Augustine hugs Iris before they continue their journey. Finally, they arrive at the Lake Hazen weather station, and Augustine immediately starts working with the communication equipment to contact Ether. Soon after, Sully picks up a signal from Augustine and they talk briefly about the condition of Earth. However, the communication is cut off again when an emergency alarm sounds. Ether is now passing through an uncharted area, and the crew is unaware of an asteroid storm hitting the ship. The meteor shower causes significant damage to several parts of the ship, including the communication equipment. After the meteor storm subsides, Maya, Sully, and Adewole decide to go outside the ship to make repairs. Maya, experiencing this for the first time, feels very nervous and vomits several times while preparing. At first, the repairs go smoothly and they manage to restore the communication system. However, just as they are about to return inside the ship, another meteor shower begins. Although Sully and Adewole are unharmed, Maya is hit by meteor debris, causing injuries to her body. Maya is quickly taken to the medical room for urgent treatment. When her helmet is removed, blood pours from her wounds, causing Sully to panic. Despite Adewole and Mitchell's efforts to save Maya, she ultimately dies from severe blood loss. The crew is devastated and mourns her death. However, their attention quickly shifts as Ether approaches Earth and they see the planet's dire state. Earth is now covered in radiation and no longer habitable. Sully immediately contacts Augustine to inform him that they cannot land on Earth due to its unlivable condition. Augustine explains that everyone has been evacuated and he is the only one left on Earth. All space exploration missions have ceased, with Ether being the only one still operational. This news leaves the crew feeling hopeless as they realize they cannot return home, with the only option being to go back to the moon K-23. Mitchell opposes this plan because he wants to find out what happened to his family. They also know that Augustine is still alive, So even though Antarctica is the last affected area, there's hope that Mitchell can land and find his family. After receiving permission to use the landing craft, Mitchell prepares the necessary equipment. During their conversation, Sanchez talks about his daughter who died at age 4 and how she would be the same age as Maya if she were still alive. Sanchez asks Mitchell if he is willing to return to Earth together, as the landing craft requires two pilots. In addition, Sanchez wants to give Maya a proper burial, as he considered her like his own daughter. Finally, Sanchez and Mitchell say goodbye to Sully and Adewale, who will return to K-23 to continue human civilization. Sully contacts Augustine again to inform him that Mitchell and Sanchez will land at Lake Hazen, while she and Adewale will go back to K-23. In their final conversation, Sully reveals that she is a huge fan of Augustine's work and that he has been an inspiration to her. Touched by this, Augustine asks Sully her real name, and she reveals it is Iris Sullivan, the daughter of Jean Sullivan. This shocks Augustine because it means Sully is his daughter, whom he never met since she was born. However, Augustine chooses to keep this secret and changes the subject by asking Sully to describe the condition of K-23. Sully explains that K-23 is amazing, and the colony there is similar to Colorado. At that moment, Ether enters a signal dead zone, cutting off their communication. It is then revealed that the little Iris, who was always with Augustine, was actually a hallucination. This was a manifestation of Augustine's loneliness and regret for not spending time with his loved ones. The film ends with Sully and Adewale continuing their journey to K-23.